So, welcome to our webinar today. Before I start with the presentation, I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Özge Ekici. I live in Germany in a city called Mönchengladbach, and I'm senior product manager at Experian, with the responsibility about our ID and fraud solutions. So before I start now, just one more information. You can submit questions during the presentation, and I'm going to answer them at the end of the presentation. So I want to talk with you about fraud management today. And the first thing which came in our mind when we talk about fraud management is protection. Protection against fraudsters. But that isn't the only thing we want. We imagine if we want to build up a new house, we also want protection. So we could have a house without doors and windows, but then we would have fully protection, but we're gonna die inside. And the same happens to online businesses; they're gonna die. What we actually want is to know who is ringing on our doorbell outside. Is it a good? Is it a good? Is it? So then that's something what online businesses also want. They want to know the intention of the user who is trying the transaction attempt. Is it a good customer or a harmful fraudster? And this is obviously a challenge. So 1 out of 5 good customers are declined because of purely rule-based fraud management. And so we often talk about financial damage in the fraud management. Financial damage which occurs from chargebacks, fraud write-offs, and so on. And this is also a kind of a financial damage. We could not successfully convert the transaction attempt. And the reason for those are various. So one reason is that still many companies operating with pending transaction. That means that the transaction needs a manual attention by a fraud manager who decides to accept or decline the transactions. And many businesses still working with hard-coded rules. That means the big disadvantage on purely rule-based fraud management is, imagine if you have a fraud attack today, then you need someone who's looking into the transactions and try to find a pattern. So, and then if he finds a pattern, he needs to extract a rule of that. So then usually you are successful, you can stop the fraud attack, and the fraudsters will stop for a while, but after a while they will continue their business. They are bypassing that rule. The rule itself remains on the rule set, and if it hits, then often with your good customers. And then you have invested resources to find a pattern. And then you still need IT resources who are implementing that rule hard-coded into their checkout. And we all know that IT resources are always limited, and also it takes time. So during that time, the fraudsters can continue their business, and the financial damage grows. So our answer to that challenges is Adrian. And Adrian is a fraud solution which rely on machine learning models with an integrated device profiling and a flexible rule sub. So let's have a look what is inside of Adrian. So Adrian contains 4 main modules, and I will go a bit more in detail after this slide. So one important and the core module is the fraud miner. This is where we train customized machine learning models based on the real loss, on the historical fraud cases of our customers. Then we have the rule sub, where our customers can choose or edit existing rules or creating new rules. We have device profiling to enrich the application or the transaction with device data. And we have the case investigator to support the fraud managers in their daily work. So let's have a look on the fraud miner. As soon as a transaction attempt comes in, this is checked against a huge number of data and combinations of data. And the results of the combinations are checked against each other to find the best possible decision for your customers. With that approach, we are able to be much more accurate in the fraud detection, which means we are reducing false positives. And that means that you are increasing your revenues. And the question is always, how do we train the machine learning models? So we have the transactional data which comes from our customers. This is, for example, the customer data. This is the address data. So basket information, product information, and so on. And then we are collecting and matching that with the device data. Device data is, for example, the operation system, the browser language, the installed languages, and so on. And the most important point here is the feedback data. So our customers need to tell us which of the transactions or applications in the past was fraudulent. This could be chargebacks, fraud write-offs, and so on. So with that data, we have the initial training. And our work is not done then. So we retrain the machine learning models every second week so that our customers have always an up-to-date fraud prevention system in place. The outcome of the checks is a recommendation to accept or decline the transaction or review the transaction. And this is supported by a fraud probability score, which goes from 0 to 100. 0 means actually no fraud, and 100 means we are quite sure that this transaction is fraudulent. And one other important module is device profiling. So many of you know it as device fingerprint. And this is not only about creating a device ID or recognize devices. We collect more than 100 data from the device. We are resolving the IP address from country to city. We are checking which internet service provider this IP belongs. We are checking if this is a proxy or not. And if it is a proxy, then we also tell you which kind of proxy. Is it the Tor network, or is it the anonymous VPN? And it's not about the VPNs which we use to connect to our company network. This is anonymous VPNs, so providers like CyberGhost or NordVPN. You can download their app in the App Store, and then it's just one click, and you have a new IP address from a country which you prefer. And these providers also promise to their customers that they don't collect any data from their customers. So that means if an authority request comes into to these providers, then they don't release any data because they have no data from their customers. And the integration is very simple. You just need to implement the Java tracking tags onto the website. And if it's an app, then we also provide SDKs. So usually it works like in this way. The tracking tags are implemented on the relevant websites. We collect the data points, more than 100, and we check it against positive and negative lists. We do the IP, we resolve the IP address, we check if it's a proxy or not, and in parallel, this data is also sent to the fraud miner, where we do the further evaluation. The outcome is, as I said, accept, decline the transaction, or review the transaction. And also in future, we need rules, but not that heavy and much more slimmer. So Our rules app is based on Google Blockly, and Google Blockly is a no-code solutions which are used, for example, by kids and students to learn programming. And when you create a rule, it's basically drag and drop. And when you create a rule, it's also possible that you check historical data, and this is really very important. So if a transaction or application attempt comes in, then we don't only check the current available data, we also check the historical data. For example, have we seen the IP address in the past? Have we seen the address in the past? If yes, have we seen different identities with this address? And you are also able to test rules or wait rules before put them into production. So with our rules app, we give you the control of, we give the fraud management and risk management department the control about their rule set and their rules. So they are not dependent longer on IT resources. And for the fraud managers, we have the case investigator. This is where we enable the fraud managers to do much quicker decisions and better decisions. There are several features for the case for our case investigator. For example, it contains a map where you can check the distances. You can zoom into the location of your customer and check the area, and so on. And all the data are categorized. So address data, consumer data, and so on, device data, and it's completely colored design. So the customer, so the fraud manager can see the most important data, and we have also a compact view where all the important data is they can see it as a summary. They see the product information which the customer did order, and they see the rules which did hit. They have a customizable dashboard, and as you can see, it's completely colored. Yellow means suspicious, red is bad, and so on. So they have the fully control about the monitoring of the transactions or applications. And with our case manager, we enable our fraud managers and risk managers to be much quicker on their decisions, and also we are improving the quality of their decisions by give them more time for each case. So Adrian is already in use with many of our customers. I have here a case study from a German retailer, and this German retailer, they don't have a huge fraud problem. So their fraud rate was really, really low, but they invest a high manual effort into their daily monitoring. So they have also seen that many of their customers are complaining about declined or canceled transactions. They complain at their customer support, and so they know that they are creating also false positives. And the solution here was the fraud miner. And with the fraud miner, we was able to reduce the workload dramatically. So instead of 7,000 transactions per month, which they need to review, we reduce it to 300, which means a reduction of workload of 95%. At the same time, we have seen that the chargeback and the fraud rate are still on the same level. But we see a decrease of the decline rate. And that indicates that we have reduced also the false positives. In numbers, it's about 60% reduction of false positives. So they make their customers happy, and they are at the same time they are growing their revenue. So if we do a summary on Adrian means more automation and less checks for the fraud managers. As we have seen, we have reduced for one of our clients and many others the workload of daily review transactions by 95%. And it means also more accuracy. So 99.9% of all transactions are accurately estimated. So there are less errors, less false positives. And one other effect is that the fraud managers do not fear about sales events like Black Friday. So if it's a purely rule-based fraud management, so they are basically they have many rules which is based on thresholds, and this is with machine learning not the case. So even if there is a sales event, there are still the workloads usually remain on the same level. So we are at the end of the presentation already, and now we can start with with your questions, and I'm going to answer them.
So the first question is, what is the implementation time of Adrian?
This depends if there is a dedicated IT resources available. So we have customers where we have the integration done in 5 working days. So usually it's very simple and very slim integration. And if there are IT resources available on our customers, on our client side, then we are quite quick with the integration.
And then we have, are rules not necessary with Adrian?
I think rules are still necessary. So our solution, Adrian, is based on machine learning, and it's supported by rules. For example, if you have a fraud attack, you don't need to wait till we train the machine learning models. So you can react immediately. And also compliance rules, for example, if there is a country on sanction list, they should be that should be resolved via the rule set. And also blacklist and whitelist rules should be handled in the rule set. So what we want to reach is a reduction of the rule set, so everyone has a good overview about the rule set, and a rule set should be always maintained, because if you don't maintain your rule set, that usually means that you creating them false positives. It's not necessary to have a rule in place which you have created 5 years ago because of a fraud attack. So this rule can be removed because your fraudsters or the fraudsters have already found a new way to commit fraud. So a rule set should be always maintained to reduce the false positives, and the fraud managers, also the risk managers, or all relevant persons in a company should be aware about the rule set.
Next question. Does this tool handle only card-related fraud cases, or can it handle cases where customer transactions using account payment, where customers pay an invoice at the end of the month?
So we have many customers from Germany, and as you know, pay per invoice, buy now, pay later is very common. Is a dominating payment channel for many of the industry, especially if it comes to fashion. So with that, we know that the feedback data is coming very late. So sometimes, if the customer usually the customer has 2 weeks times to pay their invoice, and if they don't do it, they get the first reminder, second reminder, maybe the third reminder, and then it goes to collection, and that can take up to 3 months, right? So at this point where you give it over to collection, that this data can be used. It can be also forwarded into Adrian to use it to train the machine learning models. But especially with buy now, pay later, it's important to review, to have fraud managers. And then we are learning from the fraud managers what is fraudulent and what is not. So we are then, with this approach, we reducing the manual workload from the fraud managers, and we are learning also from their decisions. And as soon as we have the label data, this is weighted in the model training much higher than the manual decisions. So then we have the machine learning model training in place. By imitating the fraud manager, we are reducing the workload. So with that approach, it's also possible to handle buy now, pay later. It's not only card then.
The next question we have: input data fraud miner only comes from the customer's own data sets or also from other sources?
Because of legal reasons, we don't share any data between our customers. So the label data is only coming from our customers. We have industry models which is based on our experience, and this industry models we use at the beginning of the implementation, where we are not able to customize the machine learning models. So the answer is no, it's only your data which we use. But for example, if you have different companies, for example, if you are a PSP and you have many merchants, then it's possible to have a master account where you have the master rules and a negative and a positive list which you can maintain, and the master account is applying to all of your for all of your merchants. Then this is possible, but there's no data share between two companies which are not related to each other.
And the final question: what is the general architecture? Is this a web-based SaaS platform, or is it an application to be installed on the consumer's infrastructure? Customer infrastructure.
So it's not. If you go back on the slides, I try to explain. So the Java tracking tags are installed on our client's website. So this can be, for example, at the checkout, or if it's an application on the application form. There we collect the data, and we also need the end consumer data, and this is submitted by our client. So we are matching that on our side. So there is no technical integration or technical changes on the end consumer's device. So it's only with our clients, they need to install the Java tracking tags on the relevant websites, and they need to send us the consumer data, and this is via API, and we match the data on our end and have the checks, the fraud checks and the risk checks on our side.
Okay, we got another question here.
Okay.
Do we have to share card information or payment details with the service to help fraud?
So, for example, we have a bill list, so it would be good to have the masked credit card number, or at least the first 6 digits of the credit card, so we can also check the BIN and check, for example, where the card comes from. And so we are not dependent on the payment data. As you know, we also serve many BNPL clients, so there is no payment channel. But the more data, the better. And especially, for example, if you have direct debit payments, SEPA direct debit payments, it would be good to have them. Then we can do the checks there, which bank does it belong, has this payment details, share it with other customers. So are there any link transactions? and the linked transaction is also shown on our case manager. So the fraud managers can see immediately that the payment channel is shared between different customers.
And we got another question, again related to the account payment question.
Okay.
Does it mean we cannot do real-time fraud detection when a customer is paying on account?
It is. So the transaction comes in, and it's also almost a near real-time test. So we need about 300 to 250 milliseconds to have the checks and the fraud checks done. So at the end of these checks, we have the recommendation to accept or decline the transaction, and this could be completely automated. So it's not only available to your fraud managers. For example, if we tell you to decline it, then you can straightly decline the transaction or the application. And one additional feature which we also provide is imagine there is a transaction attempt and the customer wants to pay per invoice, but we see strong indicators of fraud. Then we also provide you a fraud probability score. So based on that, you can administrate your payment options. For example, if there is a medium to high risk for fraud, then don't offer all your payment channels, only offer the secure payment channels. So it's a real-time check, and it's not a check which we do afterwards. So you don't need to wait if the customer has paid or not.
And we have a new question. Is this restricted only to Germany, or can it be used for UK and other EU countries?
It's available everywhere, and it can be used. So the data which we collect are looking everywhere the same. So the data format in UK, maybe the postal code is different, but this is not a challenge for us. And we have every feature available on each country. So the answer is yes, it can be used not only in Germany, but also outside of Germany. It can be used in almost every country.
That seemed to be the last question from the Q&A.
Good. Then thank you much for your attention and joining us today. And feel free to contact us. And if you want to know more about Adrian, you will receive an email tomorrow, and then we can go a bit more in detail with Adrian. Thank you much.